All right, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Wednesday night live stream for Week 9 of the 2025 fantasy football season. For over the course of the next hour, we're talking all things fantasy football, whether that is potential waiver wire pickups from yesterday. Maybe players were dropped in your league and they shouldn't have been. Maybe you can go ahead and scrounge up some potential pickups there in order to not only help yourself this week, but for the remainder of the season. Outside of that, of course, we'll talk about trades. We'll talk about rest of season, strength of schedule. We'll talk about all things fantasy football. If you guys have any questions in regards to starter sits, we can, of course, address those questions. But as we get closer to Thursday, again, there's more and more information that will be developed in regards to injuries as we approach Thursday, Friday, and the Saturday injury reports that are incredibly vital. Of course, there's a couple pieces of information earlier today that, of course, was incredibly important. First and foremost, the thumbnail of today's episode, Brock Bowers had a full participation of practice, and he did, in fact, tell the media that he's ready to go at a full capacity this upcoming week against the Jaguars, which for many of us who have Bowers invested highly in him in the late second, early third rounds, of course, that is something of importance. Now, in regards to some other potential moves, Ramondre Stevenson didn't end up practicing today. That's certainly something of importance. McLaurin is already designated out going into this week. Certainly a lot of unknowns still going into Week 9, but there's not as many teams on bye, hopefully not as many injuries stacking up, and hopefully we can put ourselves in a position to succeed. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, as I answer these questions, you guys pretty much dictate the topics of which we talk about. Whether you send in those questions via the live chat and or super chat in order to claim priority, make sure you include your scoring format. The more context you provide, the easier it'll be to answer your questions. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Wednesday. I know my Dodgers are getting their shit kicked in right now, but all things considered, I think we'll be fine today. Let's get into answering questions, shall we? A quick reminder, earlier today, I did end up posting my top 40 wide receiver rankings. If you guys haven't checked that out, post it on the channel, thumbnail with Michael Pittman Jr. if you want to check out my rankings in regards to wide receivers. And of course, over the course of the entirety of this season, I'll be providing Sunday morning rankings for those of you who sign up via Betr. So if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, all that information down in the description. All you got to do, sign up using code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of 10, make a first time play, and you'll get those rankings. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and let's pop up the YouTube chat on screen and begin with the first question of this evening. We have Revelant, who says, full PPR, one flex position. We have Montgomery, Wan'Dale Robinson, Kenneth Walker, Woody Marks, Tyjae Spears, and RJ Harvey. If I had to pick one to play in my flex, it's Wan'Dale Robinson. I mentioned it earlier today in specific regarding Wan'Dale Robinson, who I have it's relatively highly ranked going into this given week. I have him as my number 20 wide receiver as it currently stands. Not to say that it's not subject to change. It certainly can change depending on different injuries and different circumstances. But as it stands, number 20 is a really solid position. And I primarily mentioned it earlier today. The nickel cornerback of the 49ers, Stout, has given up like the 8th most receptions and like 4th most receiving yards to opposing slot receiving options. Wan'Dale Robinson this season is number 1 amongst all wide receivers in terms of slot targets. So I anticipate him to get a lot of workload. And considering Scadaboo is out, I would anticipate a lot less rushing opportunity from the running backs of the Giants, which should lead to, in my mind, more receiving utilization for Wan'Dale Robinson, who has an advantageous matchup. The slot receivers last week of the Houston Texans combined for like 11 catches, 99 and 2 tutties. So expect for Wan'Dale Robinson to have himself a huge week here. Outside of him, I think the next best option of the available would be Woody Marks. Thank you. Bryson, what's up, my man? Says, yo, Andrew, I'm in second place at 7-1 in a 12-team full PPR league. I have Jalen Hurts, I have Bijan, JT, Rashee Rice, Tedder McMillan, Jordan Addison, Ferguson. I'm looking to upgrade my wide receiver 2/3. Interesting, okay. Trade Bijan, Tedero McMillan, and Pearsall for Gibbs, McConkey, and Garrett Wilson, or keep what I have. No, I'd make the trade. I'd make it almost in a heartbeat. The way that I see it, Garrett Wilson coming back, regardless of who plays quarterback for the New York Jets, he is going to be of supreme value as he has shown all season long. The only singular game in which he did not play well was against the Denver Broncos in London. And in his entire career, he has never played well against the Denver Broncos. You go back to the last 3 seasons, he has never played well against the Broncos. So it's not a surprise. It's not something that we're going to hold against him. I think McConkey and Garrett Wilson are so much significantly more valuable than Pearsall and Tedero McMillan that even though you were taking a slight downgrade from Bijan to Gibbs, it's not enough to where I don't make this deal. I would take these 3 10 times out of 10 in a heartbeat as we proceed, especially considering I don't trust Bryce Young. And additionally, Pearsall's injured still. He didn't even practice today. I'd immediately make that trade. I think that sets you up to probably win your league. As if your team wasn't already really good, it becomes that much better and that much more lethal as you proceed, Bryson. Thank you. Jonathan Cushman, thank you, Jonathan. I greatly appreciate it. Says, hey, Andrew. How are you? I'm doing great, thank you. 12-team full PPR, Baker, Bijan, Pollard, Rice, Ibuka, Bowers, McConkey, and the Lions defense with Aubrey. Bench consisting of Algier, Spears, Benson, Pitts, Flacco, and the Eagles defense, excuse me. I'm 4-4 in 8th, but top 8 make the playoffs. Any trade suggestions? Okay, looking at the team as a whole, obviously Pollard is something of a problem here because Baker Mayfield, Bijan Robinson, Rice, Ibuka, Bowers, McConkey, Lions defense, Aubrey. Those are players you can start weekly for the remainder of the season. So ultimately, it's a matter of how do we improve upon Pollard and how do we make the upgrade, come to fruition. The way that I see it, Benson could very easily, once he returns, especially this week, henceforth in a PPR, be incredibly more valuable than Pollard and Spears because of how much Kyler has checked it down to his running backs this season, 7 targets per game when he has started. So Benson has already demonstrated that he can find a lot of value there. And we already know that the Arizona Cardinals offense provides a lot of value to their running backs regardless of matchup. So Benson could serve as that RB2, but I would like to try to make some sort of upgrade henceforth to where if there's a possibility in your league to where you can get a 2-for-1 or maybe even a 2-for-2 to where maybe you go after a better running back like an ETN, maybe even a Jalen Warren, theoretically speaking, because when I look at the upcoming schedule, I mean, yeah, the issue with your team is you've got so many studs. Like, I don't want to be trading away Rice, Ibuka, McConkey, Bowers, or Bijan, right? So I don't want to break those pieces apart. But if you were to get a deal that truly is like substantial enough to where you're getting back an upgraded RB2, and then yes, you may take a lesser wide receiver than McConkey, like moving like McConkey and I don't know, let's say Benson, theoretically speaking, maybe even Pitts on top of it, those 3 trifecta for a running back wide receiver combo could be the way to accomplish that, in which you're getting back a wide receiver and a running back, and one that at least is going to be of substantial value at RB2. Otherwise, you're rolling with Benson and hoping that Pollard or Spears gets traded prior to the deadline next week, or you just continue to just keep it as is. Don't really kind of, don't make any crazy moves and just wait for the waiver wire opportunity of like picking up, how this most recent week it ended up being Tracy. That was the pickup of the week. I mean, it's only week 9. We've got a lot of time between now and the remainder of the season to find that other running back off waivers if an injury is to occur within, these upcoming backfields. So for right now, that's my only priority, trying to upgrade RB2. Making a trade or potentially going out to see if there's any possibility in which we can go after an ETN and or potentially a Jalen Warren in order to accomplish that, and then try to get back some other wide receiver help there when you're sending 3-for-2 or 2-for-2. Thank you. All right, continuing on, we had a question that came in from Eddie J. Eddie, what's up, my man? Says I'm in a 12-team standard league. Okay, should I trade Kyron for CeeDee Lamb? I would. Team is Knicks, Dimes. Wide receivers are Chase, Terry, Ibuka, Tez, Watson, Cook, Kyron, Benson, Dowdle, Hendy. I can also send Dowdle for Nico. Okay. I mean, look, as of right now, in your current position, I would feel more comfortable moving Dowdle for Nico because Dowdle is, regardless of the fact that he is most likely going to take the starting reps henceforth, he is still going to have Chuba Hubbard in his back pocket. So as we proceed, I would feel in my mind that I'm comfortable with either of these 2 trades, but I do, perceive Kyron to be a more valuable prospect rest of the season in comparison to Dowdle. And I think the separation in which you're getting from Nico to CD isn't as significant enough to where I'm comfortable making this trade, keeping Kyron and pushing forward. I think that's the appropriate way in which we accomplish this. Dowdle for Nico is the way that I go about it. And on top of it, he's already passed his bye week and can very easily serve alongside of Chase. And then of course, once Ibuka comes back, you have your 2 wide receivers in your flex rest of the way with Cook, Kyron as your RB1 and RB2, both also passed their bye weeks. So you pretty much be stringing together victories as you proceed here. Thank you, Eddie. Oni, what's up? Says, hi, Andrew. Questions in the chat. Okay. Says, I got offered Kenneth Walker and Flowers for Kyron Williams and Pearsall. Interesting. Look, here's the issue that I currently have in my hesitation on the trade in its entirety. I think it's purely a matter of like, when I look at your backfield, you have Gibbs, you have Javonte, you have Monangai, Pollard, Rashad White. If you were theoretically going to give away Kyron here, just for the slight wide receiver upgrade, because you are dealing with I mean, honestly, you're not even in a bad position. Like Sutton, Collins, and Tedderroll McMillan should be your starters the rest of the way. If I'm in your position, I probably keep what I have. I don't want to be investing in Kyron Williams, right? Sorry, I don't want to be investing in Kenneth Walker right now, unless Kenneth Walker is going to be traded prior to the deadline, or subsequently Zach Charbonnet is going to be traded. If neither of those two outcomes are to occur, Kyron Williams is so much more valuable than him for your roster in specific that I would rather keep it as is and keep it pushing, because Monangai, Pollard, and Rachaad White henceforth are probably not going to be startable. So you would want to have 3 stable running backs in the form of Kyron, Gibbs, and Javonte, while you still have 3 stable wide receivers in the form of Sutton, Collins, and Tetairoa McMillan. So I'd keep this combo. In the event in which you were to get a better running back than Kenneth Walker, sure, we can entertain the idea, but Kenneth is just not pulling it right now without touchdown upside and no receiving workload as well. Akuma, what's up, my man? Says, in a 10-team, 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex format with no tight ends. I started 0-4, now I'm 4-4 thanks to you. Do I trade Pittman for Lamar straight up? My team is Dart, Chase Brown, Bam Knight, Nico, Ladd, Pittman, Tyler Warren. My bench is Rico Dowdle, Tetairoa McMillan, Kamara, Marks, and Benson. Here's my thoughts on the matter. Okay, so the thing is that Jackson Dart has provided so much value fantasy-wise that even now with Scatterbo going down with injury, I feel like Jackson Dart isn't really going to go anywhere in terms of his value. Interesting in terms of like a 4-point per passing touchdown format because of the rushing upside he's providing. Having scored a rushing touchdown in 4 of the last 5 starts, it's just so much value inherently there with him scoring over 19 fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 as well. Like, I feel like there is some credence to the decision to making the deal, assuming Lamar stays healthy the rest of the way and pretty much converts back to being MVP Lamar and pretty much being what he was last year. But if he comes back from his hamstring injury and is a shell of himself and he's not producing 26, 27 fantasy points per game, but instead only producing 22, 23 per game, I think the loss of Pittman compared to what Dart is going to do subsequently for the remainder of the season isn't worth it, to which I would rather just keep Pittman. If you're of the belief that you think that Lamar's going to come back and just completely fire on all cylinders, I'd say go for it. But considering you're playing in a PPR league and it's a double flex, double wide receiver format to which I could start Nico, Ladd, Pittman, and then additionally also roll with Tetairoa McMillan as one of my flex options there as a 4 wide receiver bunch, like it just, there's so much value to be had there that I would probably lean towards keeping. Yeah. That's where my mind's at immediately. I think Jackson Dart can pull it for you, especially going forward. Thank you. Andrew Mitchell sends in a question. Says, Andrew, in a half PPR, do I drop Booty for Travis Hunter rest season? I would. I mean, think about it this way. I mentioned it earlier today. Kayshon Boutte has scored 4 receiving touchdowns in his last 10 receptions. 40% of the time he's scoring a touchdown when he catches the ball, which again is an incredibly unsustainable rate. Now, it's not to say that he's not capable of sustaining it, because offenses every single year are able to produce a wide receiver at the form of, a Kayshon Boutte. I've said it multiple times over the course of the last week. He is this year's Rashad Bateman. So if we're going to be in a position in which Boutte continues his success, that's great. And he could very easily be relevant at this top 36 capacity every single week. But I would like to bank on the idea that Travis Hunter rest of way is a more valuable prospect, especially if the target opportunity and, of course, snaps in terms of routes ran, everything in that nature continues to trend upward and he becomes more of a developed receiver. I feel like his ceiling of production and a weekly consistent option is that much stronger as we proceed. LZ7 says, in a full PPR double flex format, I'm 5-3. We've got Jackson Dart, Kamani Vidal, J.K. Dobbins, JSN, Chase, Theo Johnson, Sutton, and Shaheed. My bench consisting of Bucky, Omarion, Baker, Garrett Wilson, Judkins. You've got a literal infirmary / bye week hell on your bench here. IR is mixing. How are we feeling? I really like this team. And really, the most valuable part of your team is genuinely the bench. Like, once you get back Bucky Irving and Omarion Hampton. Now, I know somebody asked when the intro music was queuing, is Omarion Hampton going to return after his bye? Based on the words that head coach Todd Bowles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers shared with us yesterday, it feels like he's most likely not going to be ready post-bye week. So there's a possibility in which he doesn't return until week 11, so keep that in mind. But until then, you still have sufficient running back help at a 5-3 record with Vidal, Dobbins, and in a double flex format, you have enough wide receiver depth to be able to sustain this. But henceforth, when you get Baker back into the mix, Garrett Wilson's going to be a stud. Judkins, as long as he's healthy, you're in a solid position. Watson's okay. Again, still kind of fighting back, the lack of opportunity that he continues to get within that offense, but certainly a big playmaker. Ultimately, in this current position, if I was in your seats right now, LZ, I might just drop Mixon, throw Bucky Irving or Omarion Hampton into my IR, and I would go pick up Dylan Sampson to back up Judkins. Or I go pick up a better tight end instead of Theo Johnson because there's got to be somebody better. Other than that, JSN and Chase, Sutton, Dart, everything else is just looking great. I don't think I need to make any moves. I'm just playing it patiently, and I'm keeping it pushing. And as soon as everybody gets healthy, it's pretty much I have all the Infinity Stones to win the league. Thank you. All right. Rafter says in a in a non-PPR 12-man league, I need a wide receiver to fill for McLaurin. I have Tez Johnson and Ibuka on my bench. Can pick up DK or drop Johnson for DK. Yes, I would drop Tez Johnson immediately for DK because the assumption is that even when they come back from bye, there's a higher likelihood that, of course, Chris Godwin will be active. So yes, I would make the swap of Tez Johnson for DK because DK could very easily be a second half of the year kind of stud rookie wide receiver, which we've seen every single year the National Football League continues to create. Paul Allen says, rather stash Corum or Ollie Gordon in a half PPR. I mean, as of right now, it's a coin toss. When you ask me who's the most valuable of the two, I would say that Blake Corum, theoretically speaking, is more valuable, primarily because of the offense that he's associated with. Whenever you're associated with one of the higher scoring offenses in the league, you subsequently just have more value there in comparison to Ollie Gordon, who, yes, even though if something was to happen to HN, he would provide great value. Unfortunately, when you're associated with the Dolphins, you don't score as much. It becomes that much more difficult to find that upside. So Corum is technically the better lottery ticket of between the two. Now, I will admit, like, Ollie Gordon can be a providing helpful start, even when HN is still active, but we have very seldom seen it this season, only twice thus far in 8 weeks. Avram, what's up, my man? Says, drop Pittman for Sutton, half PPR. No, I mean, look, Pittman is just, he's him. It is what it is. Michael Pittman Jr. has been too good. So if we're talking about this week and going forward, I'm very much so happy keeping him on roster there. Thanks, man. All right, we continue on with the question that comes in from, let's see, Eric M. Eric, what's up, my man? Says, questions in the chat. I appreciate the help. Go Dodgers. Yeah, listen, I think we need all the help for our Dodgers here. Let's see what the score looks like. Yeah, 3-1. Okay, not bad. I'm curious who ended up getting the run here. Kike, yeah. Anytime the right-handed hitters are going up against their pitcher, the one that they have out today, it's been pretty good. Okay, Eric M says, PPR, would you drop Jordan Mason or Ramondre Stevenson for Kareem Hunt? Thinking rest of season more than just this week. Also, Ingram or Loveland this week. Well, okay, so this is a little bit of a tricky question because I don't think I would drop either for Kareem Hunt until I get more information regarding Pacheco's knee injury. Because again, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't mean that Kareem Hunt is going to be of value every single week rest of the season just because, Pacheco misses 1 week here. Kareem Hunt would have to be the outright starter rest of the way to have any more value than the two that you mentioned. So as of this moment, no, I wouldn't drop either Jordan Mason or Ramondre Stevenson for Kareem Hunt. The only reason I would ever make a swap this week is in the event in which Pacheco is designated out and you need a victory and are desperate for said victory. And then at that point, I would be dropping Kareem. I would drop Jordan Mason probably to pick up Kareem Hunt and play him. But as of right now, I still believe that both of these prospects have more value than Hunt in the long run. Thinking rest of the season than this week. Also, Ingram or Loveland this week. I think the matchup for Colston Loveland is just incredibly there's so much of an advantageous position taking on Cincinnati, but it looks like Cole Kmet is most likely going to be active this week, which leans me in the direction of where I'd probably just rather go with Ingram at that point, which I don't love saying, but just kind of the situation there for the Chicago Bears offense. H. Jocker says, if Flacco is out, Chase Brown or Tyjae Spears PPR. In the event in which Flacco is out, I still think that Jake Browning will be sufficient enough to keep value within the offense, but obviously, it'll be a little bit of a tougher situation for Chase Brown henceforth. I would still roll with Chase Brown. I don't think I'm very much so comfortable starting Tyjae Spears as of yet, especially in comparison to the talent of which Chase Brown provides. Yeet sends in a question, says in a full PPR, who should I put in my flex? It says Swift or Pittman Jr. Currently starting HN and Javonte Williams, a running back, Chase and Rice on my wide receivers. Yeah, look, as of right now, I don't see there being a wrong answer. I think both of them are so incredibly valuable. And the fact that both have not only been incredibly touchdown, relevant as of late. If I'm not mistaken, Swift has scored a touchdown in 5 of the last 6. Pittman has scored a touchdown in 6 of the last 8. I feel like both have incredible matchups, but if I had to choose one of the two, I'd probably feel genuinely more comfortable rolling Swift out there because that Bengals defense is genuinely an absolute joke. They got torched by Breece Hall and Isaiah Davis. I mean, genuinely were giving up over 8 yards per carry in that game, to which I believe that the running game of the Bears is so much more talented up front and from their running backs this season that they'd be able to feast there, which sucks because every wide receiver is dominated against Pittsburgh recently, but at this point, Swift has just too much of a ceiling in my mind and too much of a floor as well. Swole, it says DJ Moore for Montgomery. Yeah, I would immediately. If I can get Montgomery here and I'm desperate for running back help, I'm more than happy to make this deal. Also, BTJ for ETN, I would also make that deal. ETN has so much value, guys. I've talked about it ad nauseum over the course of the last 2 weeks. Travis Etienne is the best buy right now. He is the 5th best strength of schedule for the remainder of the path of weeks 9 through 15. The 5th best strength of schedule at the running back position in terms of rushing statistics allowed. An incredibly advantageous approach on top of the fact that, yes, his 3 most recent games that he has played against the Chiefs, Rams, and Seahawks have not led to very many fantasy points. That's primarily because they are the 6th, 2nd, and 3rd toughest matchups at the running back position. So ETN's only going to the moon henceforth. I would make that ETN trade and probably that DJ Moore trade if you have the wide receiver depth to justify it. Let me see what you have on your team. It says I'm in a double quarterback, 6-point per passing touchdown, 8-man league, double running back, double wide receiver, double flex format. I have great quarterbacks, Achane, Javonte, Sharps. Yeah, look, as of right now, being able to, looking at your team as a whole, if I was going to make a swap there, technically speaking, I think you're better of the 2 available swaps. Would be getting ETN for BTJ. I don't need Montgomery as much in this circumstance. And at that point, you would start Achane, Javonte, ETN, probably Sharps as your other flex, and then Chase and Sutton as your starting wide receivers there. And then, of course, Goddard at tight end once he's back off of the bye week, and then Jalen Hurts in Indiana as we proceed. Or, of course, Jaden Daniels once he's healthy. Thank you, Solid. John, what's up, my man? Says, I just traded Fannin for Travion Henderson and Travion Henderson for Warren. Which Warren are we talking about, Jalen or Tyler? I think that's what I'm primarily curious about. I think regardless of which way you went, I think you're in a pretty solid position because, again, Fannin, as of right now, considering he's splitting a lot of the opportunity with David Njoku, unless Njoku is traded prior to the deadline, I think Fannin's overall upside is very much so limited in comparison to a Tyler Warren. And if you had made the trade for Jalen Warren, I think it's still worth it, primarily because Jalen Warren has the 2nd easiest strength of schedule going forward, and in a full PPR has even more potential for upside considering how much utilization he gets within the receiving category. Andrew Morales sends in a question. Says, hi, Andrew. Questions in the chat. Could not fit whole message. No problem. Let's see what you had here, brother. Says, Andrew, was chatting with you earlier on Patreon regarding Chase Brown and Bucky Irving, full PPR. We have Dart, Puka, Debo, and Kittle starting. Flex options are Gadsden, Kelsey, Sutton, BTJ, Wanda Robinson, Jones, Senior as in Aaron Jones. Scatterboo's on my IR. Bucks matchup looks good after New England. Let me see if you ended up sending me a message on Patreon. I probably didn't check that out until after. I think you probably did here. Let me go ahead and check that out right now, Andrew. So yeah, it says thoughts. Okay, so it says thank you for your thoughts. I also have Puka, Debo, and Kittle starting for the flex. I have the option of Gadsden, Kelsey, Sutton, BTJ, Wando Robinson. Okay, so of these available options that you have at your disposal, I feel like your best play is legitimately playing Gadsden or Kels. I think that's the best 2 options you theoretically can explore as for this week. Says the reason I want Bucky is that when Hampton returns, he would be replacing Vidal. Yeah, I mean, again, you could still... Let me see this whole question. It says, I have Gibbs and Vidal starting. That's my team. I'm thinking about trading for Bucky, considering Hampton will be a late November grab. Yeah, so the question ends up being, like, what are you going to trade for Bucky Irving in this circumstance? Like, are you going to be sending... trading Chase Brown for Bucky? Yeah, I'd be willing to make the trade. Looking at the whole team altogether and what you have available to you, I would genuinely rather have Bucky Irving, even if he returns week 11 or 12, I would rather have him rest the season than Chase Brown. So the value which you can get here, and considering you're able to at least afford not only to make the trade, but also wait for him to return, considering how many studs you have on roster, I think it's a worthwhile trade for you, Andrew. Thank you. John sends in a question. Says, Tyler Warren, I got McCaffrey and HN. Okay. You know what's funny, John? You knew what I was going to ask, huh? And I didn't even see it. Anyway, Tyler Warren, great trade. I'm perfectly happy with it. I've got McCaffrey and HN. You're good to go then, brother. Thank you. Like the Gene sends in a question. Says, PPR, still trying to fix my running back. I have Jordan Mason, Travion Henderson, Harvey on my bench. Is Mason droppable for Isaiah Davis? What running backs can I go after for CeeDee Lamb or Rashee Rice? Okay, so first and foremost, is Jordan Mason droppable for Isaiah Davis? I think it looks as if, based on the trade that the Jets made earlier today, moving Michael Carter, their primary nickel cornerback, to the Philadelphia Eagles, it leads me to believe that they are in a sell position right now, to which Breece Hall could eventually be moved. I would love to have Isaiah Davis rather than Mason rest of the season, only in the contingency in which, of course, we do end up seeing that trade happen, in which they are sending away Breece Hall. But until then, I don't want to make any sort of move at that capacity or make that drop just yet, because if the trade never occurs, which is a possibility in which it doesn't, Mason losing him could be really devastating if something ever happens to Aaron Jones. Now, in regards to your question, which running backs can I go after for CeeDee Lamb or Rashee Rice? You should be able to get any of the top tier running backs that you would like. And when I say top tier, I mean anybody in my A or pretty much A or S tier from yesterday's video. So in specific, if I was to give names, we're talking about the likes of Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, Bijan, Jacobs, Cook, any of those running backs, you should be able to haul in. Because in a full PPR score, I mean, shoot, you may be even able to get McCaffrey there. Primarily because if you look at the value which Rashee Rice is putting forth as of thus far this season, it almost seems impossible to project the possibility where he's averaging 24.4 points per game this year. He's put up 23.2 and 25.5. I feel like you may be even able to bargain your way into getting Taylor if you're lucky enough. Rashee Rice should be able to get you any running back you want. CeeDee Lamb maybe a little bit less, but honestly, I wouldn't even think you get that much of a lesser RB in comparison, because when Lamb has been healthy this season in a full PPR capacity, let's pull this up. 18, 20, 22, 14. Like, brother, he's just as good. He is himself an 18 to 20 point player every week, which if you're going to go ahead and trade him, you better get an 18 to 20 point running back in return, which all the guys that I mentioned earlier, quite frankly, I don't even know if they can live up to that potential outside of guys like, I mean, I guess you could go for an Achane or a James Cook or a Jacobs or a Henry in that capacity, Saquon, etc. Thank you. All right, continuing on, we had a question that came in from Alex G. Hernandez. Alex, thank you very much. Very much appreciate that generous super. Says, trade Gibbs for Javonte and Drake May, or Gibbs for Bucky and Herbert, or Dowdle and Tedero McMillan for Herbert and Travis Hunter. I'm currently 4-4 in a full PPR. Rest of my team consisting of Caleb, McCarthy, Flacco, Tracy, Dowdle, JCM, Spears, Rice, T-Mac, Ibuka, Watson, Ferguson, and Otten. Okay, so based on all the quarterbacks you have on roster, Caleb, McCaffrey, McCarthy, and Flacco, I would assume you're playing in a double QB league. To which, if you're going to be trading in a double QB league for a quarterback of the caliber of May or Herbert, I think what you're giving and getting in exchange is actually very much so of like fairness. I don't think this is an unfair trade at all. To which, if you're going to make one of these two trades, I would rather have Bucky rest of season rather than Javonte, but considering the health concerns that I have with Bucky and the fact that you do not have Rachaad White on roster, leans me towards maybe we just go in this direction and just take the near like kind of guarantee of it, the structure. I know there's a lot of sketchiness in regards to this, but I mean, genuinely, if you told me Bucky returns next week, I'd take this side. But considering there's just such hesitation and unknown kind of value there, I'd probably take this side. If you're willing to wait a week and make the same trade again, you could. But I don't mind either of the two. It just depends on how risk averse you are. I like the Javonte side here. In the event in which you didn't want to give Gibbs, but still wanted to make a play for Herbert, moving Dowdle and Tedero McMillan for Herbert and Travis Hunter. Let me see what you have at running back and wide receiver here. Tracy Dowdle, JCM Spears, no. I couldn't justify making a trade in which I'm giving up Dowdle and getting back no running back in return, because you would then theoretically have to start JCM weekly for the remainder of the season, which I find to be, as of this moment, unconscionable. Can't do it. Not right now, not anytime soon. So I probably rather position myself for either one of these two trades. Preferably, as of right now, probably looking in the direction of that Javonte. Let me look at Javonte's upcoming strength of schedule before I just send you off here. The Cowboys, fantasy playoffs, Minnesota, Los Angeles Chargers, Washington. Yeah, I'm still fine with that. I don't mind going with the Javonte side there. That works for me. Thank you. S-Box says, would you rather stash Jaden Reed or Ayuk PPR? Genuinely, I'd rather have Ayuk. Because when I look at the overall Green Bay Packers offense, nobody can get consistent targets outside of genuinely Tucker Kraft. So if you add Jaden Reed, you're pretty much, re-entering the same blender that Jaden Reed was putting us all in last season. If you guys remember at the end of the 2024 season, even though Jaden Reed had started very much so on a hot streak, he very much so was leaving us in the dirt. There's a reason why last year he was like wide receiver 44 overall in terms of points per game. It's primarily because, again, in the final stretch of the season, in a half PPR, after week 9, so that second half of the year, 8.8, 4.1, 18.2, 0, 8, 9, 1, 4. Those are the fantasy point contributions. I'd rather have Ayuk, who can theoretically get back to his former self in an offense that's far more comfortable feeding the ball into one singular direction consistently. Football is Life says, I have Christian McCaffrey, H.N., and Henry. Trade one for Nico and a half PPR. I probably wouldn't. I'd rather start all three of these every single week rest of the season. I think the value which you are getting with these three in comparison to the inconsistencies in the fluctuation of Nico Collins makes it an easy decision to have these three on roster. Thank you. Adam C. says, Dart, Flacco, or Love this week. Flacco is dealing with a shoulder sprain on his throwing arm, which is an absolute risk of potentially leaving him in a position to where he doesn't play. That is my primary concern there. To which, if I'm looking at Dart versus San Francisco or Love taking on the Carolina Panthers, I probably position myself to play Jackson Dart because of the rushing upside. That's probably the direction that I go in for now. Love would be second. Flacco would be third. Thank you. Eddie J sends in a question. Eddie, thank you for the follow-up. Says, in a 10-team full PPR, flex Sutton, Tracy, or Tedderroll McMillan? Thanks. I would probably end up going with Tyrone Tracy this week against the 49ers defense. Sutton against Stingley and Lassiter, very much so concerning. Tedderroll McMillan with Bryce Young coming back doesn't have him as much upside, even though the Green Bay Packers matchup is an advantageous one, technically speaking, based on points allowed. In terms of effectiveness as a defense, they're still relatively solid, so I'll still lean towards Tracy in this circumstance. Eric sends in a question. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it, my man. Says, in a full PPR, but 1 point per 10 receiving yards and 1 point per 5 rushing yards, do I flex Cortland Sutton, Jordan Mason, Kyle Monangai, RJ Harvey, Hawkinson? Of those available options, I think the idea of rolling with Monangai could be something that we establish, primarily because the Cincinnati Bengals genuinely cannot stop a nosebleed, nor can they stop a running back running up the middle against them, to which it leads me to believe that there's a possibility in which Monangai absolutely gets himself a lot of workload in this upcoming matchup in a positive script. Like, just looking at recent running back contributions against this team, we have seen in the last 5 games, 3 separate backup running backs total over 50 rushing yards against the Cincinnati Bengals defense. RJ Harvey went for 58 rushing yards on the ground, while Dobbins went for 101. Montgomery went for 65 on the ground, while, Gibbs did what he did. Then we saw, of course, this most recent week, Isaiah Davis scored for 65 on the ground, while Hall went for his 133. If in the event we get 50 rushing yards there, that's 10 points immediate for like a Monangai. In a full PPR, if he scores a touchdown, I could justify the decision. I think for now in a full PPR, I probably position myself still to play Sutton because of my unfamiliarity with how this matchup is going to kind of, I want to play Monangai. That's what I'm leaning towards. I want to play Monangai. The issue is he going to get enough rushing opportunities for me to justify the decision of rolling him this week? So for now, I'd probably just play Sutton to be safe. Thank you, Eric. Oni says, forgot to mention I picked up Tracy, if that makes a difference. Let me check your prior question. Says I got offered Kenneth Walker and Flowers for Kyron and Pearsall. So theoretically, you would have Gibbs, Javonte, and Tracy as your RBs rest of the season. I mean, I would say that having Tracy definitely makes a difference because it makes me feel more comfortable making this trade. But at that point, I would rather try to just go move Kyron. Yeah, you know what? That's fine. I guess this trade is okay in that sense because of the full PPR capacity. But even then, I feel like Kyron has so much more value than what you're getting in return, to which I would rather wait a week, let Kyron go off against the New Orleans Saints, than try to flip him next week for a better value point. That's my thoughts on the matter. Thank you. Daniel Barnes says, full PPR flex BTJ, Tedero, McMillan, Diggs, or Gadsden in a PPR. Honestly, genuinely, I feel like you have to. I mean, at this point, BTJ is such an unknown commodity. Tedero, McMillan just inconsistent. Diggs has been solid, so I'd probably say like in a full PPR, you could go this way, but if it's me, I'm going to go with Gadsden. Kaiser sends in a question, says, salute to your birth anniversary question. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Kaiser says, I'm 4-4 at a 10-team full PPR. I just traded Dowdle and Shakir for ETN. Beautiful. Now I have Mahomes, Tracy, Javonte, Judkins, ETN, Sutton, T. Higgins, Ricky Pearsall, BTJ, CeeDee Lamb, Pickens, and Myers. What should I trade? Should I try? Okay, let's see here. In terms of what you should go for, obviously your running backs are pretty much stacked, to which I don't need to make a move. If I'm looking at wide receiver, obviously Pickens, Sutton, Higgins, BTJ will get the job done rest of the way. Mahomes is not to be replaced. In the event in which you do have tight ends on roster, let's see. It says, I got offered Garrett Wilson for Pickens and Tracy. Thoughts? I would rather have Pickens and Tracy rest of the way, especially in a double flex league. There's no incentive to going after Garrett Wilson here when Pickens and Tracy are just going to provide you more efficient value rest of the way. Especially with a 4-4 record, we want to continue to rack up wins here as we proceed. So right now, I think I'm holding. The only thing that I would ever consider, Kaiser, is going after teams right now in your league that are behind the 8 ball. They have a 2-6, 3-5 record. They have players going on by like an Emeka Ibuka, and you can maybe go and bargain your way into sending a T. Higgins and a Tracy for an Emeka. You know what I mean? Like to go after a top tier player and just take it off their roster. But like even then, I don't even feel comfortable doing that in a league where I can start 2 flex. It seems like I would rather keep the depth. In the event in which you can wait it out. Oh, man, you have CeeDee Lamb as well. I see. Okay, so you have CeeDee Pickens. Man, you're stacked at running. Okay, so you're stacked at wide receiver. Yeah, I would be actually genuinely interested in just going after teams and going after maybe somebody at a little bit of a higher value point than Garrett. My only concern is the Jets' offense and the quarterback play there. Not to say that he's not going to be great, but I would rather go after Emeka Ibuka. That's kind of where I'm positioning myself as right now. Anthony C sends it a question, says, PPR, do I flex BTJ, Bill, or Tracy? I would rather flex Tracy out of the group. Thank you. Stayer sends it a question, says, love the show. I'm at 7-1 in a full PPR super flex with Josh Allen and Daniel Jones already. Should I trade Jaden Daniels, BTJ, and Kincaid for McBride, Stroud, Rome Odunze? As of right now, I don't like the idea of... okay, so here's my thought process. You're making a huge upgrade at McBride and Rome in comparison to BTJ and Kincaid. You're losing Jaden Daniels, but you're bringing in Stroud. I would be willing to make this trade because I think the value point at getting McBride and Rome, who are both already past their bye weeks, I think I'm willing to make this move. That's fine by me. Thank you. There's so much value to be had there. I know Jaden Daniels could theoretically be better than Daniel Jones, but making this upgrade is significant enough to where it is worthwhile. Thank you. Frenzy 40K says, sup, Andrew, questions in the chat. Thanks. Okay. 40K says, full PPR, start 2 flex, and someone started in a double flex league. Someone offered me Travis Hunter for JCM. Thoughts? My running backs are Jacobs, Dobbins, Vidal, Benson. My wide receivers are Puka, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Pearsall, and Flowers. Look, as of this moment, I don't think you need to theoretically make this trade. It's only a matter of if you want to, because genuinely Puka, Adams, and Flowers are probably going to be your starting wide receivers. and one of your flex options rest of the way, to which also Jacobs, Dobbins, and Vidal would be your 1, 2, 3 as your 2 starters in your flex until going forward. Then once you get into the position in which Vidal disappears because of Omarion Hampton coming back, I think at that point you might desire to keep JCM because of that late season potential of having the need for a running back. So for now, I'm leaning in the direction of I'd rather keep, even though I don't love what JCM has provided right now. What he provides in the fantasy playoffs is quite intriguing, taking on the Giants week 15, Philadelphia week 16, and Dallas week 17. I'd rather keep JCM unless you plan on moving Flowers or moving Adams and utilizing Travis Hunter as a starter. Mitchell Reddick sends in a question, says full PPR pick 2 flex Booty, Aaron Jones, Shaheed, JCM. I genuinely would play Shaheed as my primary number 1 and probably Booty as my number 2. I think it's probably smarter to go with Aaron Jones as the number 2 here because of just the stability of floor, because Booty's so sketchy. If it's my team, I probably lean in this direction. If I'm feeling crazy about it, I go Booty and Shaheed. I have no interest in playing JCM this week. Matt Suna sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, I have Herbie, May, Genti, Pacheco, Hunt, Henderson, Mason, JSN, Puka, Ibuka. Is it even worth trading for an RB1? Who would I go after? In the event in which you were theoretically going to trade for an RB1, I mean, you theoretically have one with Genti, but if you were going to trade for one, I don't know if it's technically worth it. Like, you would move Ibuka in order to get your RB1, theoretically speaking, and you would have to go after any of the top tier running backs. Like, genuinely, I would only feel comfortable getting back somebody of the caliber of a Henry, Jacobs, Cook. That's it. That's what I want to return. If you can get it, then I think it's worth it for half PPR purposes. Otherwise, keep it as is and keep it pushing, brother. You're good to go. Andrew Mitchell had a follow-up, says, hey, Andrew, really rough 0-8 start, full PPR, double quarterback, and point per completion league. Trade Dart and Jamar for Hurts and Achane. Details in the chat. I don't see the reasoning as to why you would make this trade. Jalen Hurts is on a bye week. You're 0-8. If you make this trade, it doesn't make any sense because you don't get to play Jalen Hurts this week. So I think it's in your best interest to keep both of these and start them both. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question from Eddie J. He says, Nico trade was declined. Go with Kyron for CD. Wait a minute. Go with Kyron for CD. That's fine. I'm okay with it. I don't love it, but I'm okay with it because I think Dowdle and Hendy can suffice. And I do 100% believe CD has way more value than Kyron rest of the way. So if you can get away with it, go for it. Alejo, what's up, my man? Long time no see. Says full PPR, start Goff or Love in week 9. And who do I stash rest of the season for my backup quarterback? As of right now, going into week 9 in specific, I think the Minnesota Vikings matchup has always kind of been a bit of an up and down situation there for many of quarterbacks. I think it depends. Obviously, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts recently definitely have done their damage against that defense, to which I probably think that Jared Goff is capable of it. But for right now, considering Jacobs is not running at a full capacity, he's a little bit hobbled, to which I think Jordan Love, because of that, has a little bit more advantage in the meanwhile to get more pieces back in terms of wide receiver and not be subject to having him hand off the ball twice for touchdowns every week. So I think Jordan Love is the play this week. As for rest of season, I think it's a matter of who you have available. Like if you're looking for a backup option rest of the way, I don't think I'm going to play very many quarterbacks over a Jordan Love, and to which I would need a backup option. If I'm looking at like the schedule ahead, specifically for like the fantasy playoffs in which quarterbacks have relatively solid upcoming matchups here, for backup QB purposes, I feel like Joe Flacco is always going to be in that mix. I feel like if there's a possibility of having Purdy on roster, they take on Tennessee, Indianapolis, Chicago. Those are 3 advantageous looks. In the event in which somebody has dropped Jackson Dart in your league, Washington, Minnesota, Las Vegas, I like those. Shoot, I even like Tua. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, like that's a really good, Anyway, continuing on. It says, I have Kraft or Kittle for this week at tight end. This week at tight end, I'm probably going to go with Kraft there because of the matchup against Carolina. It's an advantageous one. Adunze, James Cook, Olave, or BTJ for the flex. I'd go with James Cook there in the flex. Thanks, man. Trill, what's up? It says Hunter or Dogs. I think you meant Dobbs, like as in like Romeo Dobbs. I would go with Travis Hunter there. Knicks or Dart? For this week in specific, Jackson Dart is pretty solidified. Do I want to play the Houston matchup? I don't. I'd play Jackson Dart there. Alex G says 1 quarterback league. I don't like Caleb, so I picked up others. I see. So you're in a 1 QB format. Interesting. So if you are in a 1 QB format and you have Caleb, McCarthy, and Flacco, if you were to make these trades, you would just dump all 3 of these options. But, I mean, I feel like you could just keep Gibbs. If Flacco is legitimately healthy rest of the way, then you'll survive. In the event in which he's not, then yeah, you probably make this trade and just roll with it. And just drop all 3 of these guys and go pick up handcuffs across the board. Thank you, Alex. KLYZM says, hey, Andrew, full PR, 4-4, flex start, Shamir DK, Chuba Hubbard, JCM, RJ Harvey, Judy Tez on bye, holding Judy maybe for the trade. In the event in which we're starting 2 players to flex, Shamir DK would be number 1 and RJ Harvey would be number 2. Says, do I drop someone to pick up Alec Pierce to play with DK? I genuinely would. I drop Tez Johnson to pick up Alec Pierce and play him against Pittsburgh this week. Thank you. Mo Money says, should I drop Ramondre Stevenson? Team is below. I don't think you should. Even if you have Travion. Yeah, considering you have Travion Henderson, I don't think there's a reason to where you need to drop Ramondre at all. Oh, sorry. Who should I drop for Ramondre? My apologies. I've misunderstood. In the event in which you were to drop a player for Ramondre Stevenson, it would be Tyler Algier, genuinely. Because I think Judkins, Alvin Kamara, RJ Harvey, Travion Henderson, and as of right now, Dylan Sampson has a better outlook in terms of the not-so-distant future to where, yes, that would be the drop. I'd genuinely either drop Algier or Sampson, and right now I'm thinking it's Algier. Thank you. Isaac Smith says, full PPR, bench 1, Kenneth Walker, Wanda Robinson, Stevenson, Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay, so first and foremost, if in fact, okay, Wanda Robinson and Marvin Harrison are 100% auto starts. In the event in which Stevenson is active this week, he's in my lineup. If he's hurt and he misses, the question is answered for you based on his absence. Tracy or Quentin Johnston, I would rather play Tracy. Thank you. Let's see here. XD says, trade Brees for London in a non-PPR standard league. If you need the wide receiver depth, I'm okay with it. I don't have an issue with it. If London gets his full practices as we are anticipating, I think there's enough value there to where I'm happy with it. I do not like the upcoming schedule for Breece Hall. He has the 4th most difficult fantasy playoff schedule, and in terms of rest of season strength of schedule, he has the 6th most difficult for the remainder of the season. If you just talk about the upcoming matchups as a whole in terms of running stopping defenses, Cleveland, New England, Jacksonville, New England, Atlanta, Baltimore, if they improve with Roquan Smith coming back, stopping the run, I don't love the idea, so I'm okay going with London there. Thank you. All right, really quickly, it's about 6:49. All the questions that have been sent in, I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to have to go, unfortunately, at about 7. So I do appreciate y'all coming through, but if you guys can, hold your questions for tomorrow night if you guys were thinking of sending in one. But yeah, we'll end with Barza here. So if you guys can, hold those for tomorrow if potentially available. Otherwise, you can check out the Patreon and send me a direct message there. Appreciate it. Okay, continuing on. Josh sends in a question. Newbie in fantasy, currently 6-2, 10-team full PPR. My team is Dak, Herbert, Bijan, JT, Rashad, Aaron, Benson, Puka, Devontae, Sutton, Dobbs, Kraft, Pinheiro, and the Broncos. Any moves I should make? At 6-2, I would look to try to go after teams in your league that are 2-6, have incredibly stud players, but are on potential bye weeks. If someone in your league has Bucky Irving, Emeka Ibuka, Garrett Wilson, and maybe Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, etc., players of those caliber that are going on bye week, and you could potentially get them off their rosters for a discount because they're on bye and because they're desperate for a victory this week, that's the way in which I would go about it. Otherwise, I think having those quarterbacks, those running backs, those receivers, and that tight end kicker and defensive combo, there's very little in which we can genuinely improve at a great rate, unless, again, you're going out there and taking advantage of teams that are in desperate situations. Thank you. Blazed says, any advice on my team on 4-4 in fourth place? 2 flex, full PPR, Baker, Darnold, JT, Genty, Lamb, DK, McBride, Diggs, Gadsden, Harvey, JCM, Dowdle, Jacoby. Side question, who do I start? Thanks. Looking at it as a whole, in terms of starter sits this week, first and foremost, Baker's out on bye, so Darnold would start next to JT and Genty. Lamb would start. DK would start. McBride would start. Gadsden would be your tight end. Gadsden would be one of your flex options, and your second flex would either be Diggs or Dowdle, to which right now I'm leaning towards Diggs to be your flex. So you've pretty much have it set right here. This entire line is your starting lineup. As for side questions of like figuring out what we should do going forward, ultimately, looking at the roster as a whole, if you have the opportunity to potentially go buy low on ETN, I'd still go and do it. I think I'd like to have maybe like send like Dowdle and JCM in order to accomplish it, or send Dowdle or maybe Harvey and JCM or something of that exchange to where maybe you can go ahead and scoop that. Considering he hasn't looked great as of late because of his fantasy point contributions and tough matchups, that's a pretty easy steal. Other than that, when I look at the upcoming strength of schedule, when I look at your wide receivers, I feel like you can only upgrade so much from DK, but maybe you can go send DK to the team that has Garrett Wilson and scoop him in return because they're on bye. That's one of my immediate thought processes as it stands. Otherwise, I'm just holding and pushing because you have a double flex format, and I'm not trying to give too many 2-for-1 offers out there unless I'm getting back substantial value in return. Abram says, drop McConkey for Sutton. No, keep McConkey. You're good there. Thank you. Ibrahim, what's up, my man? Ibrahim, do me a favor, type it in the live chat when you get a chance. Nathan Gutierrez says, hey, Andrew, I'm 3-5 with running backs Henry, Hunt, Stevenson, Hubbard, wide receivers Rashee Rice, Drake London, Kupp, Myers, Gadsden, and TJ Hawkinson at tight end. Quarterbacks Mahomes and Fields. I got offered Mims for Stevenson, but I wanted McConkey for him. What should I do? I take Mims is not worth anything. So no, thank you. Don't need it. Keep it as is. Keep it pushing. You're definitely not going to get McConkey in return. If you wanted McConkey, you would have to give away, way more value, to which it's not even worth it for you. So just keep Stevenson. Don't make this trade. It's not worth it. By the way, the guy is last place 2-7 or 1-7. Okay. So as of right now, looking at the overall situation, I don't like the deal. I don't like Mims. It's not necessary. Marvin Mims is not a value. Thank you. Fantasy Forecast says trade Sutton, Judkins for Flowers and Warren. I don't mind that. If it's a full PPR, I'm very much so happy with that trade. I think it's an equal trade. I think it's fair across the board. I think it shouldn't pull any vetoes in your league. It says, would you trade your Judkins for Warren straight up full PPR? Considering the offenses they're associated with in the full PPR capacity, I think both of them have equal value rest of the way. But I would genuinely rather have Warren because of the full PPR capacity and Judkins dealing with a shoulder injury that could sustain him to maybe miss a couple weeks here. Vanilla Coke says, I need a wide receiver 1, and I don't want to downgrade too much at running back. I want to offer B. Robinson, Devontae Adams, Addison for Jacobs, Lamb. Is that a fair trade? I think it's, if you're giving away Bijan Robinson and Adams, I think that in itself should be enough. If it's not, then this makes it fair. I think at that point, it's a fair trade. If you have enough depth rest of the way to where losing these 3 pieces to get those in return isn't going to hurt, then yeah, I'm okay with this trade. I think it's fair across the board. I think you may be paying a little bit extra, but it's okay because at least it opens up a roster spot to where you can maybe go make a move or two. H13 says, which trade is better? Send Rashee, Kyron Flowers for Bijan, Abuka, Johnston, or send Garrett Wilson, Kyron Flowers for Jacobs, Abuka, and Fannin? Okay, looking at it right now, I think I would rather get in return, because I don't want to give away Rashee Rice. I would rather have Jacobs, Abuka, and Fannin in return right now, because Johnston probably never plays for you. So as of right now, between the separation of value, I'd rather have Rashee. I'd rather give away Garrett Wilson. I'd rather get Jacobs and Abuka and Fannin plus Fab. Thank you. H13 says, follow up for my last super chat. My running backs are Kyron, Judkins, Chase Brown, Dowdle, Woody, Benson, Rashee Rice, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Flowers, Addison and Kelsey. Look, okay, so considering you have Kelsey, I don't know why you would need Fannin then. To which it makes it a little bit like, can I get another piece instead of Fannin here? Can I get more fab compensation? That would be my only other potential ask in that circumstance. Because at this point, yes, Kelsey has an upcoming bye, and if you're trying to fill it with Fannin, then sure, that works. But ultimately, it's not a necessity to have to make that deal. In the event in which Njoku gets traded, sure, Fannin would have more value, but only in that circumstance. Otherwise, again, I don't want to trade Rashee Rice. I would rather move Garrett Wilson. Thank you. Matt sends in a question, says, should I trade Javonte Williams and Addison for Genty and Diggs? Interesting. As of right now, I think Diggs and Addison have relatively similar value, assuming McCarthy can keep it up. But in terms of the running back value at both these teams, I'd rather have Javonte than Genty. I do not like the upcoming schedule for Ashton Genty, primarily because the offensive line's already still beat up. And the upcoming schedule, because of the negative game script, it doesn't really provide much of semblance of consistent volume there to where I think I'd rather just have this side as of right now and going forward. Hey, again, my previous question, Super, it's a 2QB league. All right, you're going to have to retype it in because obviously it disappeared, Andrew. Thank you. Barza says, hey, questions in the chat. You may have missed my reply. Okay. Says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR, I got Tracy and Etienne at running back. I have Chase, Lamb, and Rice at wide receiver / flex. Pittman and Metcalf on my bench. Would you trade Lamb for Cook? Or am I okay at running back? No, I would make that trade in a heartbeat. Because of the value which you have at your bench and the fact that you can just flex Pittman every single week, I would rather have Cook than Tracy, and I just play Cook, Etienne, Chase, Rice, and Pittman. I'm okay making that trade very happily. Thank you. Emily says, real quick, Malik Washington or Trey Tucker PPR? I would rather have Trey Tucker for tomorrow or this weekend. Malik Washington against the Baltimore Ravens could be of value, but outside of scoring a touchdown, very much so. Like he just hasn't proved enough value, even in the absence of Waller, to where I would feel comfortable starting him even over Trey Tucker. Let's see if Andrew Mitchell sent in his follow-up. And then once we get to Andrew Mitchell's question, we're going to close it out for today. I do appreciate y'all coming through. Again, this had to be a little bit of a shorter live stream, only an hour long. I would have loved to be here a little bit longer, but I have obviously a couple things I need to take care of personally, so I'll attend to those. Let's see here. Let me go to the live chat, see if Andrew Mitchell had a follow-up in regards to getting points for receiving yards. Oh, yeah, there was a question from Ibrahim that I was looking for. Maybe Ibrahim's still in here. Ibrahim. Nothing from Ibrahim. Okay, maybe you sent something on Discord and I can check that out after. Let's see. Andrew Mitchell. Okay, it says 2-quarterback league, point per completion, trade Dart and Jamar. No, I understand it's a 2-quarterback league, but here's my thought process, right? If you're theoretically trading away Dart and Jamar to get Hurts and Achane, Hurts is on a bye week this week. And if you're at 0-8, you can't afford to have your quarterback on bye, right? Like, I'd rather just have these guys contributing to helping me win this week. But if you tell me, Andrew, like, Jalen Hurts, he doesn't need to start. I got Daniel Jones and Josh Allen this week. Then at that point, I'd be like, okay, well, I guess you could make this trade because it helps you for the remainder of the season because I prefer Hurts over Dart at a significant enough value to where I'm willing to make this downtake of production. But I still think this is the keep in the long run there, brother. My team is May, Dart, Jamar, Marvin Harrison. Yeah, again, in a 2-quarterback league, I'm keeping this because if you're 0-8, you have to win every game. And you cannot afford for bye weeks to kill you. And this would be killing yourself with a bye week here. Thank you. Okay, we've caught up. Sorry for trouble. No, you're good, my man. If you had a question, you can go ahead and just send it to me on Discord, and I'll take care of it, my man. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all. That's going to cover for me today. Again, if you guys want to go ahead and ask me individualized questions, you can go ahead and check out the Patreon. Again, you can ask me individual questions in regards to waiver wire pickups, trade questions, and or, of course, you can get those rankings every Thursday and Sunday morning, uploaded there via, of course, an Excel sheet and, of course, a couple screenshots for those of you who are interested. Half PPR, full PPR, Bowers or Ferguson. Let's probably play Bowers this week if he's available. Ibrahim said I sent it on Patreon. Perfect. I'll take care of that right now. Otherwise, if you guys want rankings, you can get those every Sunday morning via the Betr sign up. All it takes is signing up using code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of 10, and make a first time play within a real cash play, and you'll be be eligible. And of course, you have to be eligible via the map to the right side of the screen to be able to do that sign up. And of course, you get a free $10 and a free play when you make that sign up using code Andrew. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate y'all. We're going to go ahead. We're going to cue the double helix. Have a great rest of your night. Go Dodgers, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.